Formula One is on the brink of a revolution, but instead of excitement, the new FIA regulations for 2026 have sparked a firestorm of criticism. What do drivers and teams really think about these changes? Are we really looking at a necessary breakthrough for the future of racing, or is the FIA risking too much in a bid to modernize the sport? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. The new regulations for the 2026 Formula One season, which the FIA has decided to implement with the intention of improving sustainability and spectacle, has unleashed a real storm of criticism. Teams, drivers, and even the experts closest to the sport have been skeptical of the radical changes that are coming. The introduction of new rules implies a substantial modification of the cars, both in terms of aerodynamics and power units. This ranges from chassis to hybrid systems and new engines, all adapted to reduce emissions and make energy consumption more efficient. Early reactions from those involved in the paddock have been very negative, especially as this change is considered one of the biggest since the turbo-hybrid era that began in 2014. But unlike that transition, where the industry was willing to experiment with new technologies, F1's current challenges appear to have pushed teams into a defensive position. While the FIA affirms that these new regulations are necessary to guarantee the future of the sport, many fear that the result will be an F1 that loses its essence, one that has been focused on pure speed, risk, and the total control that the drivers have over their cars. One of the key points in this debate is the introduction of new aerodynamic systems. Although the FIA defends that these changes can improve the quality of the races by allowing greater proximity between the cars, the team's resistance is fierce. Engineers say the added complexity could reduce the team's ability to adjust their vehicles to the specific characteristics of each circuit, which could negatively affect the show. Additionally, it has been mentioned that the introduction of automatic aerodynamic control systems could disempower drivers by reducing the amount of direct control they have over the cars. Another controversial aspect is the modification of the power units. These new units, designed to be more efficient, will be much larger, forcing teams to make adjustments to the car's overall structure. Additionally, the hybrid system will be altered to increase energy efficiency and reduce emissions, which is a laudable goal from an environmental point of view. However, this change will also bring greater complexity for teams who will have to learn to manage these new systems under extreme racing conditions. For drivers, this energy management and the introduction of new technologies could represent a significant change in the way racing is managed, shifting the focus from pure driving to greater management of the car systems. In this sense, the drivers have also expressed their concern about how these modifications will affect the dynamics of the races. Max Verstappen, one of the most critical, has pointed out that the need to manage the car's batteries and automatic control systems could interfere with the excitement of driving. The Red Bull driver, who has dominated the last few seasons, has made it clear that one of the aspects he most enjoys about Formula One is total control over the car, something that new technological systems could take away from him. This sentiment has been echoed by many of his peers, who fear that the ability to adapt to technology will end up being more relevant than skill on the court. As testing of the new cars progresses, criticism has intensified. In particular, the FIA's latest modifications, which include changes to active aerodynamics and communication systems terminology, appear to be an attempt to calm the waters. However, the last-minute modifications also show that the FIA itself has realized that the first versions of the regulations were not perfect. The fact that adjustments are made so close to the start of the season reflects a lack of confidence in the direction that was initially planned for 2026. What is at stake in this debate is much more than the competitiveness of the teams. It is about the future of Formula One itself. If the implementation of these new rules leads to an F1 that is more akin to a technology management competition than a battle of skill between drivers, it could change the way the public experiences the sport. Motorsport purists fear that by prioritizing sustainability and energy efficiency, the FIA will end up sacrificing what has made Formula One the pinnacle of motorsport: the speed, skill, and risk inherent to the sport. This is a crucial turning point for F1, where fans, teams, and drivers are being called upon to decide whether to accept the changes proposed by the FIA or fight to preserve the essence of what Formula One has always been about. The resistance of drivers, especially champions like Verstappen and Leclerc, shows that the impact of these regulations could be much greater than the FIA had anticipated. With the start of the 2026 season ever closer, the controversy can not only define the immediate future of Formula One, but also the way in which technological changes will affect the relationship between drivers, teams, and the sport. The most influential voices in Formula One, those of the drivers, have not been long in coming regarding the new regulations for 2026, and the criticism has been forceful. Max Verstappen, three-time world champion and one of the most successful drivers of the modern era, has been the most vocal. In his first tests with the new systems and cars adapted to the 2026 regulations, Verstappen did not hide his discontent. Speaking at the Austrian Grand Prix, he expressed his frustration with the changes. "For me, it's pretty terrible," he stated bluntly. Their criticism focused on two key aspects: energy management and new aerodynamic systems. Charles Leclerc, one of Ferrari's most prominent drivers, has also been very critical of the changes that the FIA plans to implement. In a first test with the car adapted to the 2026 regulations, Leclerc expressed his disappointment. "It is not the most pleasant racing car I have driven so far," and added candidly, "I probably don't enjoy it." This criticism, although somewhat more moderate than Verstappen's, reflects a common concern among drivers. The new regulations will not only change the way cars behave, but also the way drivers must approach races. The new energy management, which will force drivers to constantly think about battery conservation and energy strategy rather than focusing solely on speed, represents a shift in the very nature of racing. Leclerc also mentioned that he could not yet imagine what the 2026 races will look like, reflecting widespread uncertainty about how the new cars will affect competitiveness and the possibility of overtaking. The criticism from these drivers reflects a common concern about the future of the sport. While the new regulations may have laudable intentions, such as improving sustainability and making racing more competitive, there are fears that these changes will end up diluting what makes Formula One unique. At the heart of the controversy is the fundamental question of whether the FIA is prioritizing the spectacle of driving and the skill of the drivers, or whether it is trying to change too quickly, putting the very essence of the competition at risk. The FIA single-seater director, Nicolas Tambatsis, has come out to defend the new regulations, ensuring that the resistance that some drivers and teams have shown comes mainly from the first tests carried out with early versions of the cars. According to Tambatsis, the cars have not yet reached their final configuration, and many of the problems that the drivers have pointed out are part of the adaptation process. In his opinion, initial criticism is normal when such significant changes are introduced, but he is confident that, over time, teams and drivers will adapt to the new rules and will be able to take advantage of the benefits of the regulations. Furthermore, the FIA has emphasized that these new rules not only focus on making the cars more sustainable, but also seek to improve competition and the quality of racing. In particular, the introduction of new aerodynamic standards and hybrid systems aims to reduce the dependency of drivers on tire use in car settings and allow automated systems to play a greater role in performance management. The FIA argues that this will allow drivers to focus more on race strategy rather than worrying about constantly managing the car systems. According to them, this will not only make the races more exciting, but will also reduce the physical and mental load on the drivers, allowing them to have a more consistent and competitive performance throughout the entire season. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.